in your Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Canto 1, Chapter 12, Text 16. दैवना प्रतिघातेन शुक्ले समस्थाम् उपेयुषि रातो वो नुग्रहाराध्य विष्णुना प्रभविष्णुना.
Hare Krishna translation. The Brahmana said, "This spotless sun has been restored by the all-powerful and all-pervasive Lord Vishnu, the personality of Godhead, in order to oblige you. He was saved when he was doomed to be destroyed by an irresistible supernatural weapon."
तस्मान्नाम्ना विष्णुराता इति लोके भविष्यति न संदेहो महाभागा महाभागवतो महान्.
For this reason, this child will be well known in the world as one who is protected by the personality of Godhead. O most fortunate one, there is no doubt that this child will become a first-class devotee and will be qualified with all good qualities.
Sri Raja Uvacha Apyekshya Vamshan Rajarshan Punyashlokan Mahatmanaha Anuvartita Svidyasasha Sadhu Vadena Sattamaha.
The good king Yudhishthira inquired, "O great souls, will he become as saintly a king, as pious in his very name, and as famous and glorified in his achievements as others who appeared in this great royal family?"
Brahmana Uchuhu Partha Prajavita Sakshat Ikshvakur Iva Manavaha Brahmanya Satyasandhascha Ramo Dasharathir Yatha.
The learned Brahmana said, "O son of Pritha, this child shall be exactly like King Ikshvaku, son of Manu, in maintaining all those who are born. And as for following the Brahminical principles, especially in being true to his promise, he shall be exactly like Rama, the personality of Godhead, the son of Maharaja Dasharath."
Ishadata Saranyascha Yatha Ya Shirna Rahashibihi Yasho Vitanita Swanam Daushantir Iva Yajvanam.
This child will be a munificent donor of charity and protector of the surrendered, like the famous King Shibi of Ushinara country, and he will expand the name and fame of his family like Bharata, the son of Maharaja Dushyanta.
Dhanvinam Agranir Isha Tulyaschar Junayo Dvayoho Hutasha Iva Durdarshaha Samudra Iva Dushtaraha.
Amongst great bowmen, this child will be as good as Arjuna. He will be as irresistible as fire and as unsurpassable as
838
ocean.
5406.
Mrigendra iva vikranto nishchevyo himavaniva titikshur vasudevaso sahishnu pitaraviva.
This child will be as strong as a lion and as worthy a shelter as the Himalaya mountains. He will be forbearing like the earth and as tolerant as his parents.
पितामह समः साम्ये प्रसादे गिरिशोपमः अश्राय सर्वभूतानां यथा देवो रमाश्रयः.
This child will be like his grandfather Yudhishthira or Brahma in equanimity of mind. He will be munificent like the lord of the Kailasha hill, Shiva, and he will be the resort of everyone like the supreme personality of Godhead, Narayana, who is even the shelter of the goddess of fortune.
सर्वसद्गुणमहात्म्ये ईशा कृष्णम् अनुव्रतः रन्ति देवा इवोदारो ययातिरिव धार्मिकः.
This child will be almost as good as Lord Shri Krishna by following in his footsteps. In magnanimity, he will become as great as King Rantideva, and in religion, he will be like Maharaja Yayati.
धृत्या बलि समा कृष्णे प्रहराद इव सद्ग्रहः अहर्तैषो स्वमेधानां वृद्धानां पर्युपासकः.
This child will be like Bali Maharaja in patience, a staunch devotee of Lord Krishna like Prahlad Maharaja, a performer of many Ashwamedha horse sacrifices, and a follower of the old and experienced men.
राजर्षीणां जनयिता शाष्टाकोत्पतगामिनां निगृहीता कलेरेषा भुवो धर्मस्य कारणात्.
This child will be the father of kings who will be like sages. For world peace and for the sake of religion, he will be the chastiser of the upstarts and the quarrelsome.
तक्षकात् आत्मनो मृत्युं द्विजपुत्रोपसर्जितात् प्रपत्स्यत उपश्रुत्य मुक्तसङ्गः पदं हरे.
After hearing about his death, which will be caused by the bite of a snake bird sent by a son of a Brahmana, he will get himself freed from all material attachment and surrender unto the personality of Godhead, taking shelter of him.
जिज्ञासितात्मा यथार्थ्यो मुनिर्व्यासासुतादसौ हित्वेदं नृपगङ्गायां यास्यत्याथ कुतो भयम्.
After inquiring about proper self-knowledge from the son of Vyasadeva, who will be a great philosopher, he will renounce all material attachment and achieve a life of fearlessness.
इति राज्ञा उपादिश्य विप्रा जातककोविदाः लभापचित्तयः सर्वे प्रतिजग्मु स्वकन् गृहान्.
Thus, those who were expert in astrological knowledge and in performance of the birth ceremony instructed King Yudhishthira about the future history of his child. Then, being sumptuously remunerated, they all returned to their respective homes.
स एषा लोके विख्याता परीक्षित इति यत् प्रभुः पूर्वं दृष्टम् अनुध्यायन् परीक्षेत नरेष्विह.
So his son would become famous in the world as Parikshit, examiner, because he would come to examine all human beings in his search after that personality whom he saw before his birth. Thus he would come to constantly contemplate him.
स राजपुत्रो ववृधे आशु शुक्ला इवोदुपः आपूर्यमानः पितृभिः कष्टाभिरिव सोन्वहम्.
As the moon in its waxing fortnight develops day after day, so the royal prince Parikshit very soon developed luxuriantly under the care and full facilities of his guardian grandfathers.
यक्ष्यमाणो स्वमेधेन ज्ञातिद्रोह जिहासया राजलब्धा धनोद्धद्यो नान्यत्र करदण्डयोः.
Just at this time, King Yudhishthira was considering performing a horse sacrifice to get freed from sins incurred from fighting with kinsmen, but he became anxious to get some wealth, for there were no surplus funds outside of fines and tax collection.
Hare Krishna, continue.
Hare Krishna, we finished?
Hare Krishna,
Yeah.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna. Okay, the recitation is finished. Thank you very much, Mataji's. Very nicely recited. Thank you so much. Welcome, dear devotees. Thank you very much for attending today's chat session. If you're joining us for the first time, a warm welcome to you. We gather every day to recite and discuss Srimad Bhagavatam. We recite sometimes a whole chapter or part of a chapter, and we discuss one verse or more than one verse sometimes in more detail. And today we are discussing from the 12th chapter of the first canto. Chapter is entitled The Birth of Parikshit. And today we'll be discussing text number 16 and 17. So before we do so, we'll recite the Mangala Charanam prayers, the prayers to invoke auspiciousness and to express gratitude to our predecessor, acharyas and teachers. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yata Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutan Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gourange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivashari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prajarine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasticha Dishatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So the sages of Naimisharanya, headed up by Shonaka Rishi, had inquired from Sutta Goswami about the birth and activities of Maharaj Parikshit. Just like the appearance of the Lord is all auspicious, and to hear about the appearance of the Lord is purifying to the heart and consciousness, in the same way, hearing about the appearance and activities of the pure devotees of the Lord are potent and purifying to the consciousness. So the sages, they were very eager, it is said, eager to hear about the appearance of Maharaj Parikshit. So this is what this chapter is about. And these descriptions are taking place by Sutta Goswami to the sages of Naimisharanya. So text number 16. Daivane pratigatena shukle samstam upeyushi ratavo nugrahartaya Vishnuna Prabhavishnuna. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki. The Brahmanas said, this spotless sun.
The next station is Hendon Central.
The Brahmanas said the spotless sun has been restored by the all-powerful and all-pervasive Lord Vishnu, the personality of Godhead, in order to oblige you. He was saved when he was doomed to be destroyed by an irresistible supernatural weapon. Purport. The child Parikshit was saved by the all-powerful and all-pervasive Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna, for two reasons. The first reason is that the child in the womb of his mother was spotless due to his being a pure devotee of the Lord. The second reason is that the child was the only surviving male descendant of Puru, the pious forefather of the virtuous King Yudhishthir. The Lord wants to continue the line of pious kings to rule over the earth as his representatives for the actual progress of a peaceful and prosperous life. After the battle of Kurukshetra, even up to the next generation of Maharaj Yudhishthir was annihilated, and there were none who could generate another son in the great royal family. Maharaj Parikshit, the son of Abhimanyu, was the only surviving heir apparent in the family, and by the irresistible supernatural Brahmastra weapon of Ashvatthama, he was a force to be annihilated. Lord Krishna is described herein as Vishnu, and this is also significant. Lord Krishna, the original personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, the original personality of Godhead, does the work of protection and annihilation in his capacity of Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is the plenary expansion of Lord Krishna. The all-pervasive activities of the Lord are executed by him in his Vishnu feature. King Parikshit is described here as the as spotlessly white, because he is an unalloyed devotee of the Lord. Such unalloyed devotees of the Lord appear on the earth just to execute the mission of the Lord. The Lord desires the conditioned souls hovering in the material creation to be reclaimed to go back home, back to Godhead. And thus he helps them by preparing the transcendental literatures like the Vedas, by sending his missionaries of saints and sages, and by deputing his representative, the spiritual master. Such transcendental literatures, missionaries, and representatives of the Lord are spotlessly white, because the contamination of the material qualities cannot even touch them. They are always protected by the Lord when they are threatened with annihilation. Such foolish threats are made by the gross materialists. The Brahmastra which was thrown by Ashwatthama at the child Parikshit was certainly supernaturally powerful, and nothing of the material world could resist its force of penetration. But the all-powerful Lord, who is present everywhere, within and without, could counteract it by his all-powerful potency, just to save a bona fide servant of the Lord and descendant of another devotee, Maharaj Yudhishthira, who was always obliged by the Lord by his causeless mercy. The Brahmanas said, "Oh, this spotless sun has been restored by the all-powerful and all-pervasive Lord Vishnu, the personality of Godhead, in order to oblige you. He was saved when he was doomed to be destroyed by an irresistible supernatural weapon." So here the Brahmanas are speaking to Maharaj Yudhishthira, explaining the qualities and the birth of Parikshit. And they are saying that this spotless sun, he was protected by the all-pervasive Vishnu in order to oblige you. Oblige you means oblige Maharaj Yudhishthira. Oblige Maharaj Yudhishthira in what respect? Anyone can say? Maharaj Parikshit was born to oblige Maharaj Yudhishthira in what respect? To continue his dynasty. Yeah, Prabhupada says in the purport that the child Parikshit was saved by the Lord for two reasons. The first reason being he was a pure devotee of the Lord, and the Lord always protects his pure devotee. And the second reason, Srila Prabhupada explains, is because the Lord wanted the dynasty to continue. So he was saved when he was doomed to be destroyed. There are some interesting insights Srila Prabhupada gives in the purport. One is that this child was saved by Vishnu, as the verse says here. Vishnuna Prabha Vishnunu. Vishnuna Prabha Vishnuna. By the all-pervasive Lord, by the all-powerful Vishnu. And Prabhupada says here that when it comes to the protection and the annihilation of the negative forces, Lord Krishna does this work through his Vishnu feature. So Maharaj Parikshit, he was protected by the, Prabhupada says, the plenary expansion of Lord Krishna in his form as Lord Vishnu. This is how Krishna works. Krishna is always is enjoying, and when he wants to engage in certain activities of protection and creation and so on, he expands in his Vishnu form. So this is the form that Parikshit Maharaj saw. And then Prabhupada explains that the Lord has a plan. And what is the most important plan of the Lord in the material world? And Prabhupada says this a few times we've been reading in these purports in the first canto. In a number of purport, Prabhupada says that the primary plan of the Lord in this material world is to reclaim the fallen conditioned souls. And the Lord achieves this through his, Prabhupada says, his missionaries of saints and sages, deputed his representative, the spiritual master. And such devotees of the Lord who come to execute the work of the Lord, the will of the Lord, they're always protected by the Lord, always protected by the Lord. Such missionaries. And we see this very nicely in the life of Srila Prabhupada. The Lord had a plan that Krishna consciousness needs to go and be spread throughout the world. When Prabhupada was only 3 or 4 years old, he was playing with some matches, and his clothes caught alight, and they started to burn. And suddenly, out of nowhere, a gentleman appeared to put out the fire. And Prabhupada was showing the devotees he still had that scar from that burn. And who knows who this gentleman was, but certainly Srila Prabhupada was saved. And then we also read that how Srila Prabhupada was on the Jaluduta. The Atlantic was rough, and Srila Prabhupada suffered numerous heart attacks. And Srila Prabhupada writes that if there was going to be another night of such seas in the Atlantic, surely it would not have survived. And the next day, the Atlantic became absolutely clear and still. That the captain of the ship, Captain Pandya, he said in his many, many, many years of sailing across the Atlantic, he had never seen the Atlantic so still. So we see that in the life of many of the great teachers and acharyas. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, once he was, so to speak, attacked by a yogi. He was trying to expose this bogus yogi. And the yogi cast some sort of a spell on Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur that he became very, very ill. But Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he had faith in the Lord, and he was able to defeat this yogi by cutting off his hair. Yogi became weak, and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was saved. So the Lord has his plan. From time to time, the Lord sends his missionaries. He sends the spiritual master. And such spiritual masters, Prabhupada says, they are spotlessly pure. The material nature cannot touch them. Srila Prabhupada even said, never was there a time in his life that he ever forgot Krishna. And it is said that the greatest offense to the holy name of Krishna, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has written this, the greatest offense to the holy name that one can commit is to consider that the spiritual master is an ordinary person. The spiritual master is never ordinary. And we should never consider the spiritual master to be an ordinary personality. As Prabhupada says here, they are spotless personalities who have come with a mission to execute the purpose of the Lord, and material nature cannot touch them. Even if we see apparently, sometimes even Srila Prabhupada, it would seem that maybe he said some verses wrong, or he made some apparent mistakes. But we should not see that as a mistake. The spiritual master is operating in a faulty atmosphere. It doesn't mean, or a faulty environment, which is the material world. It doesn't mean that the spiritual master is faulty. But sometimes while they operate in the material world, we may see some apparent discrepancies, but we should never consider them ordinary. So Maharaj Parikshit, being a great devotee of the Lord, he was protected by Krishna. So text number 17. Tasman namna Vishnu Rata iti loke bhavishyati na sandeho mahabhaga mahabhagavato mahan. Translation. For this reason, this child will be well known in the material world as one who is protected by the personality of Godhead. O most fortunate one, there is no doubt that this child will become a first-class devotee and will be qualified with all good qualities. Would anyone like to read the purport?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Please read, Mataji.
The Lord gives protection to all living beings because He is the supreme leader. The Vedic hymns confirm that the Lord is the supreme person amongst all personalities. The difference between the two living beings is that the personality of Godhead provides for all other living beings, and by knowing Him, one can achieve eternal bliss. Katha Upanishad. Such protection is given by its different potencies to different grades of living beings. But as far as unalloyed devotees are concerned, he gives the protection personally. Therefore, Maharaj Parishvit is protected from the very beginning of his appearance in the womb of his mother. And because he is especially given protection by the Lord, the indication must be concluded that the child will be a first-grade devotee of the Lord with all good qualities. There are three grades of devotees, namely the Mahabhagavad, Madhyam Adhikari, and Kanistha Adhikari. Those who go to the temples of the Lord and offer worshipful respect to the deity without sufficient knowledge in the theological science and therefore without any respect for the devotees of the Lord are called materialistic devotees or Kanistha Adhikari, the third grade devotees. Secondly, the devotees who have developed a mentality of genuine service to the Lord and thus make friendships only with similar devotees, show favor to the neophytes, and avoid the atheists and are called the second grade devotees. But those who see everything in the Lord or everything of the Lord and also see in everything an eternal relation of the Lord, so that there is nothing within their purview of sight except the Lord, are called the Mahabhagavats, or the first grade devotees of the Lord. Such first grade devotees of the Lord are perfect in all respects. A devotee who may be in any of these categories is automatically qualified by all good qualities, and thus a Mahabhagavat devotee like Maharaj Parishit is certainly perfect in all respects. And because Maharaj Parishit took his birth in the family of Maharaj Yudhishthira, is addressed here as the Mahabhagavat, or the greatest of the fortunates. The family in which Mahabhagavat takes his birth is fortunate because due to the birth of a first-grade devotee, the members of the family, past, present, and future, up to 100 generations, become liberated by the grace of the Lord, out of respect for his beloved devotee. Therefore, the highest benefit is done to one's family simply by becoming an unalloyed devotee of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Krishna Mataji. So such a beautiful purport, so much nice points Srila Prabhupada is making. In the verse, there's this word Vishnurat. Vishnurat, sometimes, I know I got a friend in Mumbai, his name is Vishnurat Das. Vishnurat means one who is protected by Lord Vishnu. Now, this is not an ordinary situation. For one to be personally protected by the Lord is something very, very great. And therefore it is said here that this child will be well known in the world as one who is protected by the personality of Godhead. So Maharaj Parikshit is very well known. In fact, his case is a very unique case. Before he was even born, even before he was practically taken birth in the world, he was protected by the Lord in the womb. This is quite extraordinary. And, Prabhupada explains that, Prabhupada paraphrases here the verse from the Katha Upanishad, Nitya, Nityanam, Cheta, Chetananas, that the one living entity is providing for and is taking care of all other living entities. So this is the nature of the Lord. He's giving protection to his great devotees in the same way he's maintaining his great devotees. And Prabhupada says here, as far as the unalloyed devotees are concerned, he gives the protection personally. Now there is one nice pastime or story in this regard. The Acharya, Arjuna Acharya, was once doing his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. And he was reading this verse 922. Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janaha paryupasate tesham nitya biyuktanam yogvahami aham. So the translation of this verse in the Bhagavad Gita 9th chapter is, Krishna is saying, but for those who worship me with devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. So he was reading this verse and he saw this word, yoga, sheham, vahami, aham. Aham means I. So he's saying, oh no, this can't mean that Krishna personally comes and carries to the devotee what they lack. So he crossed out this word, Vahamiham, that I carry, and he wrote, I arrange. And I just, for now, I can't remember the Sanskrit term, but he crossed that word, Vahamiham, and he put, I carry, so I arrange. That Krishna is not. So Arjuna Acharya then went out to take his bath, and while he was gone, his wife was at home to prepare the meal, and suddenly two boys to our house knocked on the door, and they said, we brought some bhoga for you. And she gladly accepted, and she was so captivated.
We can't hear. Can't hear him. Is he muted?
He's frozen. He's completely frozen.
Must be his Wi-Fi.
Am I able to ring you?
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes,
can hear you now.
Prabhuji.
I don't know what happened. My laptop connection's gone down, so I'm not sure where we got to. Were you all hearing the past time I was narrating about Arjuna Acharya?
Yes, Prabhuji.
All right. Okay. So I'll just continue. I don't know what's going to happen to my connection. So the boy said, yeah, he scratched our back. And they quickly gathered themselves and off they went. So when the husband came back, he said, oh, where did you get all this boga from? He said, 2 young boys, beautiful young boys, came and they brought this boga. And he said, yes, then what happened? He said, these boys then showed me the back and they said, you're very cruel, you scratched them. Did me scratch them? I wouldn't do such a thing. And then suddenly, the super soul inspired him and he thought to himself, oh, I know what this means. Today I scratched out this word Vahami Haham, that he doesn't personally come, but he arranges for. So this was an offense. So the Lord, for his pure devotees, they are very, very dear to him. He makes all arrangements for his pure devotees, for their protection, and he will personally come. And we see, so many histories. Lord came personally as Lord Nrsingadev to protect Prahlad. He was personally protecting the Pandavas. And even in Chaitanya Leela, there's a beautiful pastime called the Mahaprakash Leela, where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was reciting the past lives of his devotees. And he was saying that, Gangadas, do you remember one day when your family was being attacked by the Mohammedans? You ran to the bank to try to escape. And then suddenly from nowhere, a boatman appeared. Do you remember Gangadas? And Gangadas said, yes. And Mahaprabhu said, I was that boatman. And then he said, Haridas, do you remember when you were being beaten through the 21 marketplaces? You were not feeling any pain? Haridas said, yes, Maha. And Mahaprabhu turned and he showed his back. And he said, and there were all the lashings from the whoop Mahaprabhu showed on his back. And he said, yes, Haridas, I was taking this. And then he said, Murari, you remember when you were so depressed one day? Someone came and spoke to you? I came. So this is the wonderful reciprocation between the Lord and his devotees. And it's interesting in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, one may think, which type of devotee? And Prabhupada says there's 3 types of devotees, the first class, the second class, and the third class. The third class is the Kanishta Adhikari, the third class devotee. His faith is very weak. He can be easily convinced otherwise. His nature is that he only sees the Lord and himself. He doesn't see the Lord's devotees. And and he doesn't have a very good understanding of the scripture. Then there's the second class devotee, the Madhyam Adhikari. The Madhyam Adhikari, he's unshaken in his faith to the Lord. He preaches to the innocent and he ignores the envious. He is well versed in the scriptures, but there are some times when he is not able to defeat others. But the first class devotee, the pure devotee, his vision is he sees everyone as devotees. He may not be a devotee, but he sees everyone as a devotee. And his faith is unshakable, and he can convince anyone. So such first-class devotees, the Mahabhagavat, and even the Madhyam Adhikari, the second-class devotee, the Lord pays special attention to them. First, definitely the Mahabhagavat, the Lord offers personal protection to them. The Madhyam Adhikari, the Lord also protects, but sometimes he may do it through his agency. And Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, this is how much the Lord regards his devotees. This is the affection the Lord has for his devotees, that he protects not only his devotees, but he protects 100 generations in the family of such a devotee. 100 generations. And Prabhupada, just out of his respect of his beloved devotee. How amazing is this? In the 7th canto, Lord Nishingadeva asks Prahlad for a benediction, to ask for some benediction. And Prahlad Maharaj says, I am not a businessman, my Lord. I will not ask for anything. And the Lord insists. And then Prahlad says, okay, I'm concerned about my father. He was so demoniac. Please protect him. And Lord Nishingadev says, you don't have to worry, Prahlad. He says 21. Here it's at 100 generations, but in the 7th canto, it is mentioned 21. Lord Nishingadev tells Prahlad Maharaj, 21 generations in your family, they are already liberated. So the devotees of the Lord are very dear. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, every year it is described in the Madhya Lila that the residents of a village called Kulinagram, they would visit Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they were very, very dear to Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu said, where did I've got the verse somewhere. Mahaprabhu said, the Lord said, what to speak of others? Even a dog in the village of Kulinagram is my dear friend. Mahaprabhu said, these devotees from Kulinagram, they're so dear to me that they are my very dearest friend. Not only are they my dearest friend, even the dog in the village of Kulinagram is my dear friend. This is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the relationship between the Lord and the devotees are extraordinary. The Lord's devotees are so dear to him. So it's 25 to 9 now. I think I should stop. These beautiful verses we are studying, the Lord protecting Parikshit Maharaj, he's known as Vishnu Rat. We should relish them and yeah, they're beautiful verses. So if there's any questions, comments, or reflections anyone has.
Hare Krishna, Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Vani
Please,
Mataji.
please accept my humble obeisances. Allah is to Srila Prabhupada and Guru. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Wonderful class as usual. There is one question I think I was not concentrated today. So, is Vishnurat is the name of the Parikshit Maharaj?
Yes, Vishnurat means one who is protected by Vishnu.
Okay.
He's called Vishnu. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, so how do we know between Madhya Adhikari and Uttama Adhikari, the fine line? Is there, like, how would you know somebody's, because all devotees, they dress similar, we can't really tell.
Generally, as Prabhupada describes, the Uttama Adhikari, he doesn't draw distinction. He sees everyone as devotee, right? So a Madhyam Adhikari, so the Uttama Adhikari never preaches because they're saying everyone is devotee, only I am not a devotee. So they don't preach. But the Madhyam Adhikari preaches, and as a preacher, they have to make the distinction between the innocent and the envious. That's one way of drawing the distinction, but there is one caveat. Sometimes the Uttama Adhikari can choose to come to the Madhyam platform. Because someone may say, oh, Prabhupada was a preacher, big preacher. He was drawing distinction between the innocent and the envious. So he must have been on the Madhyam platform. If we just apply these definitions to the letter, no. Sometimes the Uttama Adhikari personally come down to the Madhyam Adhikari platform because they have this intense desire to a certain way. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Prabhu, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, because I was also thinking the same, how Srila Prabhupada, if he was an Uttama Adhikari, yet he was such a big preacher, then that kind of was contradicting what you were saying, but then you clarified, so that's fine, thanks.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Thank you for this nice discourse, as usual. So this verse that you recited, like Ananya Chintayantu Mamse Jana Paryupasate Te Samnik Nitya Diyuktanam Yoga Kshemam Bahamyaham. So this verse is also found in the Vishnu Sahasranam, which was composed by Bhishmadev when he was on the bed of arrows. And this one was narrated by Chandra. Chandra was telling Dhritarashtra when he was in narrating the battle, what was happening on the battlefield. So yes, this one came last. That was the end of the Vishnu Stuti, the Vishnu Sahasranam. It's in there. Yes,
Okay.
Very nice. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for giving us that insight into Lekha Mataji.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
You have such wide and broad knowledge. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Not like you, Prabhuji. You are top. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
It's all Prabhupada's mercy, all Guru and Gauranga's mercy. Thank you,
True.
Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Any other reflections, questions, or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dhanavad pranam, Sarvesh Prabhupada.
Hare Prabhu. Dhanavad pranam.
Thank you for a wonderful class as always, Prabhu. I was just a point you made earlier about Prabhupada making mistakes. There's a really nice quote, and I forget the disciple that made that quote in the Lilamitra when she was being initiated. Gayatri, he was reciting the Gayatri to her and asked her to follow it. And he'd given it to her in written as well. And so she was following, he was leading and she was following. And when it came to the fifth line, he said something different to what was written. So she was confused. What should I do? should I read what he's written or should I follow what he was saying? So she decided to read what he had written. And Prabhupada immediately realized he'd made an error, and he just carried on connecting. And she made a very beautiful realization there, that she realized that it didn't matter when a pure devotee makes such errors, because when he was reciting, he had his eyes completely closed and he was completely focused on Krishna. And whatever he said would have been pure and worthy. So it was such a nice realization when a pure devotee such as Srila Prabhupada, even though when he makes mistakes, which are rare, of course, but even when they're still pure. They're not to be considered mundane by our standards. So it was such a nice. Lila Mitra is such a beautiful tribute to Srila Prabhupada. I think I would encourage everyone to read it, because if we're in ISKCON, I think it should be one of those mandatory books that we should all read, so to really understand Srila Prabhupada's life. I really do.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing such a beautiful pastime. That's true. As Prabhupada says here, they are spotless. They are spotless. So, whatever they do, apparently we accept because they are pure. They're pure. Thank you, Sailash Prabhu. Such beautiful.
One other thing that it might help, I think the devotee asked about how to differentiate, but in a very simple terms. I heard this being quoted by, I think it was Bhakti Mitra Swami some time back. And it's such a beautifully simple way. The word sadhana has its root in sadhya. Sadhya means our destination. And destination is, of course, to reach Krishna's lotus feet. So sadhya is our destination.
Mm-hmm.
Sadhana is our devotion, is our practice in order to reach the destination, is our journey.
Mm-hmm.
Sadhaka is one who practices that journey or is on that journey. And a sadhu is one who has perfected that destination and reached that ultimate goal. So it's that root word sadhana, sadhya, sadhaka, sadhu, and sadhak. It's nice to be able to connect all of those things. It was such a nice, beautifully way of looking at it and understanding that. Because sometimes, I forget what the word sadhu really means, and it comes from that root of someone who has perfected his sadhana. So I just thought it was a nice way of understanding.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Okay. No other comments. Thank you very much, dear devotees, for your attendance, your participation, your kind and patient listening. All glories to your service, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Vanchakalpatarubhya.
Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Thank you, Prabhu. It's a wonderful class.
Thank you, Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Hare.
Jai Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you.